Hi, everyone. Welcome. This is Lotus with Art of Sacred Embodiment. And we are coming towards the end of April. So I wanted to send out a video with the next newsletter. A little bit about the new moon I wanted to include that is coming up. And we also are coming into eclipse season as well. And we're going to find out a little bit more what this has to do with what I'm going to be talking about today for our video on becoming the creator beings that we are, living a life of thriving and flourishing. And also, what that really is in essence is connecting more deeply and fully to our deepest soul presence. All of this weaves together to create our next level trajectory through the ascension process. And really, this next level is going to be all about deeper embodiment. So, as many of you know, and I've been talking a little bit more about this in great gatherings and in private work, we've spent the last, let's say, decade or so really moving up and out, really connecting in with the higher realms, our highest self fractals, right? That the consciousnesses that reside in the other dimensions, because we are multi-dimensional beings. And we've been going up and out. We've been getting those big highs and those big rushes, and accessing the fifth dimension, sixth dimension, seventh dimension sensations, right? Let's say those consciousnesses, when we tap into them, we have a very visceral sensation that can feel very expansive, a little bit ungrounded. We come into that divine neutrality, that bliss state, that place of oneness. And then it lasts for a while, excuse me. And then we start to come back down. But then when we come down, we end up feeling a little bit disconnected from source, from the experience that we were hoping would be more of the norm, right? So we've kind of been on this up and down, up and down. And really the last 2 years, but specifically coming into 2022, we have felt that it's all changing, because we have accessed, we've opened up, we've expanded to be able to hold more light and hold the higher level consciousnesses and the higher frequencies of the higher dimensions and those aspects of ourselves. Now it's all about this embodiment. We could say now it's really about bringing that light, that heaven down to earth and anchoring it on the earth that also has ascended in her own way, in a very powerful way. So when we're talking about the embodiment, what we're going to be working with this year is really about, it's not just anchoring into our physical form and the sacred technology that is our physical beings. And we hold the templates, we hold the activated blueprint that keeps getting upgraded over and over and over again. But it isn't to take us up and out anymore in the way we've known it, but it's to take us down into our body to hold these states in a much more grounded, and we could say in a more radiant and expanding way, from a very solid root center. And even our chakras have changed, and the ways that they function have changed. We have more chakras that have come online. I've talked about this in other classes. Um, so our sacred technology is upgrading consistently to support this process. But the upgrade of our sacred technology and our body also depends upon, it doesn't just happen, right? I mean, it does happen automatically, eventually over time. And some people may just, you may just be opting for that timeline, right? But for those who are choosing the ascension trajectory, we are consciously working with this process in every stage and phase and all of the cycles that we're going through to expedite it and to do it with more ease and grace, to do it consciously, to be saying, yes, I choose this over and over again, so that our soul is communicating with our higher realms. And in doing this, we have to consistently be preparing not only our human consciousness, our personhood, and our physical body to be able to hold more light in it. That's what the light language does, right? It does all of these things. It supports every influx of energetics that are coming onto the planet, all of the different frequencies, from the plasma frequencies, the Christed, the solar flares, the geometric storms, all of this that's happening out there is also happening inside of us. The outer verse is the inner verse. And the more that we work with it, the more ease and grace that we're going to have, and the easier time we actually have in knowing our multidimensionality and working from that very deeply connected source, connected space and consciousness. So that's kind of like the long introduction here. So we're coming into embodiment. That's the main key. We're anchoring all of this energy into our physicality. We're upgrading our physicality. And this is going to mean that we're going to be having maybe some physical issues, right? Some ailments or imbalances, some dis-ease that will come through the body as it purifies the density to hold more light. And when we understand what's happening, we can take the appropriate measures while also incorporating the energetics without going into a lot of worry or fear, and still being able to address everything on the multi-dimensional planes with which we are working. So I have an overview of what we're going to be working with this year, both in just classes, and I've already talked about some of that in the last newsletter, but also in this next level of creator beingship in private mentorship sessions. Because what I'm finding is we have a lot of this, which how do I move through the energies now? Because most of us have felt that we're in a very different state of operation. Particularly this year has ushered in that divine feminine blueprint much more acutely and viscerally. And she doesn't work with us in the same way that the old masculine paradigm does. We used to be able to plan and predict and move from point A to point B to point C to completion. We used to be able to have our goals and manifest, right? manifest what we were seeking. The manifestation happened in the external, where we took the steps A, B, C, and D to create this. And, you know, for those who are still going to be working within that realm, meaning they're going to be, for lack of a better way, say, let's say, just staying operating in the 3D, who aren't really interested in the movement, or aren't called to it, or that it just is not their, it's just not their, it's not their soul path. There's going to be a way that that's still going to be operable, but it's going to get more difficult, because the frequencies and the coherency is shifting so much. So to be in coherence, we actually are going to need to start operating from more of the spatial, spiraling, internal creation first, to create the frequencies and the energetic match for what we're going to want to create outside. So we all know we're creating all the time. And I wrote about this in the last newsletter. We're always creating, and we're creating with our thoughts, with our speech, with our actions, in our patterns and behaviors. We're creating with the subconscious voices that a lot of times we don't even recognize or know of, but those are, you know, the shadow, the inner child, our woundings, our fears. Those are very big components of our creative mechanics, because they're very dense. So they have this magnetism to the old paradigm. And so they operate in the background, and we don't even really know that they're operating, and yet they are indeed creating the experiences that we're seeing and manifesting unconsciously in our lives. The patterns that we keep, you know, riding the hamster wheel and don't understand why something is happening again and again and again. So when we want to become creator beings, what we're doing is we're doing our creations consciously. We're connecting deeply into an inner sacred intimacy with ourselves, which means we're getting very clear on what is the unconscious patterns and voices and karmic baggage that we've been carrying with us, that is also wired in our DNA. That's really where that karmic baggage is. It's in our DNA, which is why it's important to understand how to upgrade the carbon-based DNA into the higher level strands of DNA that now, you know, we're up to like 12 strand DNAs, right? So all of this, we have to consciously be on board. We have to be saying, yes, I want to be living in an awakened state and operating from the fullest consciousness that I can, and coming online over and over and over again to the next level of consciousness, and allowing the energies and the frequencies and the assistance that I have from all of the universe, from all of nature, from all of my highest selves, to be able to assist this process and embody all of that in the physicality, so that I come home to myself. So I'm going to jump ahead to some of this so that I can explain it a little bit, so I'm not repeating myself. So when we're working with flourishing and thriving, first of all, I love the word flourishing. I love the way that it feels. I love the abundance that comes with it. And I love for me, the frequency and the essence of life, with the capital L, the essence of life that I feel, and I can connect to that frequency, right? That energy, that signature of flourishing. And then it fills me with a greater perception and a more visceral connection to life with the capital L. And that life is here to uplift, to support, to bring joy, to bring celebration, to bring vitality, to bring freedom, to bring deep connection as well with myself and with others, to be able to come into deeper relationship from a deeper space of embodiment with all of life. And that even means that I come into a deeper conscious relationship with my grief, perhaps, with my loss. That's where I've actually spent the last, first couple months of this year, feeling in those deep states of loss and grief for a couple of different reasons. And, in some ways feeling like, oh my gosh, like I can't feel the light again. I can't get into that expanded state again. But at the same time, I knew what was happening was there was a sacred container. There was a sacred relationship that I was involved in and with. There was an intimacy that was taking me not up and out, but even deeper within my own beingness, grounding and rooting me with my humanity, right? As well as my divinity. So it's that heaven coming down to earth, that we access our highest selves that we've been doing in the up and out with our divine essences, right? That wisdom, those higher aspects of us. Some of us know them personally. We have names. We know our highest selves, right? And some of them have embodied, but it's also coming into an intimate relationship with them as ourselves, and then allowing them to integrate more completely as who we are. And this is a homecoming. And this is part of our soul presencing. And as a creator being, we have more power to create that life of flourishing, that life of thriving, that life of celebration, from coming home with the power that we have not had ever on this planet, particularly, we'll just say in our lifetime. Okay, because we have been disconnected and scattered through different nodes of and timelines of wounding, of traumas, of fears, of past life, present life. Whenever we experience a trauma, we deposit a part of our soul in these other places. And this leaves us very disempowered. Whenever we're operating through a lot of fear, through a lot of doubt, and in survival mode, we're depositing aspects, parts of us, part of our energy, and we become very disempowered. So it's hard to create from that place. And those are our shadows and our woundings and our inner children and all of that, right? So we're coming into, who am I in my fullest? And my belief is this is not going to happen overnight, and this is an ongoing process. But I can say from my own experience, and for the experience of many who I'm connected with, we do come home, And we transform again and again and again, because we call all of us back every time we consciously say, yes, I want this journey, I want this path, I want to awaken to the totality of my being as source, with source, knowing that I carry source power in my soul signature and presence. So this all is happening now in the physical form, in the body, with very up close and personal. I mean, with our humanness. So I'm sure that many of us have gone through those phases where we've transcended to varying degrees expressions of our human nature. And maybe, depending on the beliefs, the traditions that we follow, we may have felt like, whew, okay, good. Like I got past that, right? That part of ego is gone. And most likely that is true. And yet we're still here as a human being. And the feminine energy spirals us around and around and around. So we revisit the layers and the levels that take us deeper and deeper and deeper into who we are, while at the same time, it takes us into expansion. But now it's happening through remaining in the body. And our human divinity is coming into this beautiful wholeness. Our masculine and feminine are coming into union. But we have to understand the alchemy connected with this, and the elemental processes, and the roadblocks or the caution signs, or nope, that road's no longer open, because we're in a whole different paradigm of functioning now. So that's kind of where I come in as that guide, right? Because what we do as guides and as way showers is we pave the way by going ahead in the timelines and understanding and grokking and embodying certain phases and stages before the collective, so that then we come back and we can say, okay, here's a template, here's a map to use, that you have an option to check out and see if this works for you, to give you more ease and grace, more support. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. You don't have to like stumble around in the dark and the confusion for as long, because that's not always fun, right? So we're coming into our fullest, and this is the new age, the heaven on earth, the golden age, the Aquarian age. It's the new paradigm, and it is the consciousness of the feminine that no longer operates from the linear, logical, known, where we can place our expectations, and the pragmaticism changes quite a bit. It doesn't mean that this doesn't exist at all, right? Because we have to marry these expressions, but we first have to really unplug from a lot of that old paradigm, so that we can really introduce the new blueprint and allow it to come online, so we get a visceral embodied understanding, so that can guide us. So that's really why why the pendulum swings a little bit from one to the next. So we want to understand how it is that we are creating now. And we are beginning to create from the feminine, from within, right? Begin within, The ancient teaching is consistently relative and becoming more relative as we move forward into this age of greater awakening, when more and more of us are saying yes, when more and more of us are ready and we're able to actually hold this light consciousness and these higher frequencies and open our hearts more. So we begin within because we're working with the energetics of the sacred technology, right? The chakra system, the crystalline templates coming online, which are new organs, new glands. Everything is being upgraded in order to run, so to speak, on more light. The activation and the construction of our light bodies. All of this is now where we're going, and we're creating this new sacred technology that's being upgraded at the same time that we are then creating our experience in this new earth and in this new world. And it's deeply connected to being able to communicate with your soul, knowing how your soul communicates with you. What is it telling you? What are the fears that get in your way from really being able to listen? How open and receptive are we, which is the feminine? How well can we surrender with a deep faith and trust, which is the feminine, to our own soul wisdom and to our higher aspects that are assisting us? Surrender is the feminine. We're coming into really operating with letting go of control, letting go of needing to know, and trusting in the mysteries, the living mysteries that are swimming. We swim in and swim within us. This is the natural cycles and rhythms and seasons of life, of the planets, of the moon, of the equinoxes, of the solstices, of the eclipse season that we're moving into, and the information that we have an opportunity to interface with. When we interface more fully with natural time, not mechanical time, which plugs us into schedules all the time and plugs us into, what time is it on the clock, and plugs us into the constructs of planning and needing to get from point A to point B. All of this is mechanical time. It's been constructed for us to live in a certain way in the old paradigm. But as we become more embodied, we're connecting back into the natural rhythms and cycles and flows that govern all of life, because we are nature. We aren't separate from nature, even though we've been disconnected from nature. So we're going to be working with the natural cycles and the wisdom that brings. And the more that we come into harmony and balance with these natural cycles, we are supported in our creations. We are supported more effortlessly and inherently as being creative beings. This allows us also from a spaciousness to operate from the high heart more completely and to access the quantum 0 point realms, right? Where pretty much everything is in wave form. And then through matching our frequency and blueprint, soul desires that come through our heart, not through our head, not what we should be, or what we feel like we need to do to compensate for where we feel lack, but come from the fullness that we are inherently, from a deeper reservoir of wisdom and knowing. And then that matches, right, these templates and blueprints in the quantum realm that will serve our highest good. And then creation can happen. Those waves particleize and concretize on this plane in order to move us in that specific timeline. So maybe what I want to say here too is that if some of this language, if you've heard me talk about it, but you know, you've been kind of working with it, but you haven't really felt ready, or it doesn't feel completely aligned with you, perhaps, to really say, what does that really mean? Like, I hear it, but I have no idea what this means for timelines. How do we really connect with other beings that are actually us, and how do I wrap my brain around that, and how do I even begin to get that in my body, right? Most of us have done some level of inner child work. Most of us have worked with our shadow. Most of us, you know, have gleaned the wisdom from our wounding to understand the lessons and to retrieve the pearls and to call back our lower fragmented soul aspects that are more sort of this plane oriented through you know, through our past wounds, through past life wounds, perhaps, those type of things. That's also a way of integration of our soul presencing. You know, if you're not sure about what your a divine alignment means, like, well, what is that exactly, and how do I get there, and what the heck is the blueprint? You know, or I kind of have an idea of what I can visualize for maybe, you know, fun Marvel movies or something like that. But how do I apply that? Okay, so that I can get moving, right? So I can understand and embody and live from this experience. Then what I would suggest is you go to my website, lotuslindley.net, go to the library, and go to the different classes. I have classes on the sacred shadow. I have classes on timelines and higher self, you know, how to understand these things. And there are exercises and activations that support a direct experience. Direct experience is everything. Okay, I just want to really, really, really emphasize that. Direct experience is everything. And then there's also the 4 sacred keys of ascension. And those are the 4 classes that what we're going to be doing as creator beings, right? Creating a life of flourishing and thriving. Is the 4 sacred keys is really foundational because it works with the 4 principles that we have to have. We have to know how to work with them over and over and over again through this process in order to keep the momentum and to keep embodying. So the first one is all about being able to go within and self-source, anchor and ground, begin to master your own thought processes, your own energy field, become centered, and to start your level of empowerment from knowing thyself within. The second level is falling into self-love. We have to love ourselves. If we don't have self-love, we cannot make the choices that are going to need to be made in order to stay on the trajectory. So, you know, there's always going to be new levels of self-love, of course, because this is a deeply intimate process. And I don't see an end personally, but it becomes easier. We transmute any of those points where we reject ourselves, or we find that we are in addiction to pain and suffering that divides us from our own wholeness. They become easier to integrate, to recognize, go, oh, okay, I don't want to choose that anymore. Boom, I'm coming home, coming into deep levels of self-acceptance. And then I can maybe heal whatever needs to be healed. And then I consciously work with activating deeper self-love and self-honoring. Then we're able to come into higher levels of alignment. We're able to say yes. We're able to trust ourselves more fully because we've done the first two stages. And then we're able to say yes, 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 and align, align, align much quicker, much easier, and to have more faith and trust in that momentum because we're embodying new information the entire way. And then we come into activating the divine blueprint, that which is already written for our highest self, and to be able to choose that and activate those codes over and over when we're ready and download that information into our consciousness, into our heart, calling in those highest selves, boom, embodiment, opening up to more life, flourishing, and thriving. Okay. None of this means that we're not going to hit hard times, but we know how to operate in a different way when we do hit hard times as a human. And we know how to hold the sacredness of the hard times rather than spinning out and getting lost and stuck. So I am separating any of those classes that are bunched together. If you let me know, email me, I will separate them. You let me know where you're stuck, where you need help with, and then you can get the individual classes, okay? Because we're all at such different places right now. All of that was foundational. Now we're coming into the mastery level work. And you have to, from the templates that I work from, you have to have a foundation that is solid with which to build upon the mastery of who you are now. It's very fun. It's very exciting. So, all right. So let's just take a look again really quick at what it is that is going to be being offered. I mean, all of this is being offered, but let's see if we can put it right into that linear way where it can be understood from an intellectual perspective, right? All of this kind of swirls in the feminine because I operate much more in the relationship and in the intimacy in the feminine waters. So let's pull in the masculine and bring a little bit more focus into this. So the mentorship sessions are going to be much more focused and intentional. All right. There's going to be an intention that every individual is going to bring from wherever they're at with each session. And then we're going to, with my assistants, we're going to work with the guidance, what feels appropriate. We're going to use different mapping systems to support this. It doesn't mean that these mapping systems have to fit 100%, but what they're able to do is to give information that can quicken the resonance and the understanding. And some of you may already work with things like the gene keys, for instance, or human design. Those are beautiful mapping systems. Those aren't the ones that I work with, but I'm totally open to, whatever is resonating and aligning for each person that I work with. So those can be incorporated. I love the Enneagram. I really love the Ayurvedic system of understanding our constitutions and the elemental expressions within our body and within how we operate in the world. And we're also going to be working a lot with the moon cycles. And we'll talk a little bit as I close this down, if I remember, with the new moon that we're heading into. So there's going to be practices, exercises, homework that everybody will receive in order to deepen whatever work you are doing at this time. Whatever it is that we're focusing on, that we're setting the intentions for your creation. Remember, it has to start from within. So we're fine tuning and we're refining that frequency inside, so the match can go, we can magnetize the match, like, oh, yep, there it is, boom, boom, manifest. That's not my favorite word, but we'll just use that. So, and journaling, right? So there's going to be exercises, self-inquiry, exercises, journaling that will help you just integrate. There will be different practices that I will be offering for you to be implementing in order to embody what it is that we are working with. We're going to, again, be working with the cycles of nature, right? The seasons, the moon, what's happening in the in the cosmos. I am not particularly a reader of the cosmos. I don't, that's not one of my skills, right? I'm not I'm not a geo empath. I can't read and get the information from the earth in that way. And I don't necessarily always know what the frequencies that are coming in or when the solar flares are happening, any of that. But I do have the resources that I look to, who that is their specialty, and then incorporate that in, and then tune into my own body and see what those energies are doing in my system. Because we're not all going to feel all of these energies all the time. It's going to depend on what we're ready for, what we may have already cleared. And so now it's a higher level activation without any purification, right? It's just amplifying rather than laying us flat for, 48 hours where we can't move because we're so exhausted, because we're integrating all of this new light. So we're going to understand all of that a little bit better. We're also going to be working with the sacred masculine and sacred feminine. This is really, really part and parcel now with our ability to create our realities. And we're going to be understanding this alchemical process within our own being and the elemental process that that takes place when we are in this deep relationship with us, right? When we come into sacred intimacy on this plane, and how do we hold, how do we understand, how do we communicate, how do we merge, right? How do we dance in a deep love with all of who we are? And this isn't gender specific. How do we connect the mind, the heart, and the womb center, right? Or the hara, that pelvis space that grounds and roots, where we go, oh, yes, I bring all of this here now. I am empowered now with this next level of my totality and truth, right? We're going to be really focusing on the divine alignment and really mastering that momentum, and then activating the divine blueprints, working with our highest self wisdom and working with that embodiment. That's going to be the main focus. We're still going to be working with shadow. We're still going to be working with inner child work, all of that. It's going to naturally rise to the surface now as we create, because that is what gets in the way of us creating the realities that we want, or it skews what we are creating already, because this hasn't been addressed and it's got a very strong signal. Okay. So we're going to learn how to heal that as we go so that we can stay in coherence, right? So not in dissonance, not in disconnection. So we can stay in a deep level of integrity. So we can learn to live from this deep level of integrity and self-responsibility, right? And this self-responsibility is, how do I claim and uplift, right? And awaken myself? Because this is how we're being called to operate now, from a new level of maturity, where we are willing to step into our power, into our wholeness, into an ongoing level of coming into ourselves as a true human being. We've been operating as toddlers and teenagers for thousands of years, because that's just the stage of growth that we've been at. And then some of us have matured to adulthood, but now we're moving beyond adulthood. Now we're coming into a spiritual maturity, and the impeccability that we require, or that is required of us, to keep accessing the higher realms. We cannot access the higher levels or anchor that in, because it will not, what's the best way to put it? Those higher levels cannot operate with the it can operate with the innocence of the child, with the preciousness of the child, which is what we're remembering ourselves. But it cannot operate through the tantrums of the child, or the reactivity, or the rebellion in self-destruction of the teenager, or the lackadaisicalness and not really taking ownership of our lives of the adult. That's not the integrity that we are creating a new world from now. So we're really being called to step into a whole new level of operating. And it's, it pushes edges, right? It's going to stretch us. It's going to be like, but I just kind of want to go back over here and tune out, veg out, rather than really step into that next place, or acknowledge that that's even a reality, because I might have to lose things here in this plane that I'm not ready to, I don't want to, right? And so everybody's going to have their journey of this, and everybody's going to have their choice. So your soul, however deeply you connect with your soul, and whatever your soul path is, that's going to be very individual. But what we're talking about here are those soul paths that are ready to, let's go, let's do this, because I'm here to bring this upliftment for the entire planet, right? And to even support all of life in the cosmos. I want to operate as a member of the galactic communities, as well as the earth communities, right? So this is where we're going. It's very exciting. Takes a lot of work though. So all of our resistances, blocks, all of that's going to come up automatically. We don't have to spend a lot of time digging for the most part. If you've already done some of the foundational work, it's going to be very easy now. And so you will be recognizing that what we're doing is, all of this is about this relationship now. We're going to be coming into relationship with everything that we're talking about. But it's a conscious relationship. It's a sacred relationship. It's the feminine relational way of operating. And I know for me, this has been somewhat challenging, because I hold a very strong individualism expression of the masculine. And so I have fared very well for most of my awakening life, since 1996, um, sort of doing my work in my own little cave, so to speak. I come out, I find a teacher who resonates, who has something that I'm like, okay, then I learn, then I go back in, right? I connect with the higher aspects, with higher guides, all of that, right? Until I receive what they need, and then they go away. And then I get to integrate it and strengthen those muscles on my own. And in the last couple years, it's been very different. I've been sort of being pushed out of my cocoon into a calling, a yearning to connect more with community, right? And some of you may know, locally here in Tulsa, we have the New Earth celebrations for Ascension. We're doing a lot more under that umbrella, right? Byron and I were doing a lot more events, sponsoring other people who are starting to get ready, who are getting ready to come on the scene with their gifts, and really supporting this more collective movement and momentum, and going to other communities to share what Byron and I are doing together in his work individually. And this has stretched my edges because of that very strong yang, fiery, masculine disposition that I have naturally. But now the feminine is coming in, and she's saying, okay, right? We have to open here more. You have to come into relationship more deeply. It's not just the intimacy within myself, but you see, I've had to master that. The nuances, the subtleties, everything has been perfect because I naturally go within. That's like one of my superpowers, in order to help other people to go within, and what they're going to come up with, and what that relationship really looks like, what it feels like, how we hold it, how we operate within that, right? The fears of going within. Oh my God, am I going to get stuck here, right? Am I going to get trapped here if I go into my grief? That type of thing. So this relational component is the feminine component, but it's coming into relationship from a new frequency, from the deeper place of authenticity that we have cultivated by going within and knowing thyself, to moving out. And that will be coming into play a lot. So I do want to wind this down. And I think what I want to say first, before I go on to closing this out, is that I want to really stress that when we're talking about creating, right? Creating our new reality, this does not necessarily mean that we have to go out and be a teacher, be a healer, be something big and grand. It may mean that, but there's a lot of that happening, right? It's like, oh my gosh, we're in an ascension, and what is my purpose, and what am I here to do, and why aren't I doing this, and why can't I learn this so I can do this, and why am I kind of stuck in this part of my life when I feel like I'm supposed to be doing this? So I want to just say that there's a very true expression, a true blueprint where you will cultivate, if you don't already know that knowing. You will know once you start really tuning in what your blueprint is calling you for, versus and that that, I don't even like the word ego really, but that egoic thought process that feels like you need to be doing something, right? Because everybody else is. Or you need to be this because you need to compensate for, some place where you feel lack and you need to prove something. And that may be part of your hero's journey and your wounded child. That certainly was part of mine. But it doesn't always mean that that is your soul truth, right? Creating our reality can be as simple and as subtle as doing our inner work and amplifying more light, holding more light, amplifying more light, and simply going out into the world and radiating it and letting it ripple out. Not that you have to do anything, you just are in your presence and it emanates. That love, that presence, that light touches all open hearts that are able to receive and maybe afford some grace to those who are suffering and maybe a little bit more closed down. It's being able to be with that person that you might meet in the grocery store or a neighbor and be really present. Let them be seen and heard, right? Connect with them. Allow them to feel loved and valued. These are subtle ways of creating the reality and deepening relationship and bringing healing in every moment. And part of this next phase that we're in is, how do I remember that that's just naturally who I am, no matter what I'm doing? Whether I'm cooking my food, whether I'm watering my plants, right? I'm coming into the sacredness. I'm coming into that now moment, coming into that 0 point, but in a very grounded way. If it is the creation, right, as some level of teaching or guiding into the community, there can be a lot of, we see it everywhere, right? There's a lot of formulas to manifest, to become this this teacher, this practitioner, whatever it is, and to different degrees of how big do you want to go. Your soul knows how big you need to go, that you're supposed to go, that is in your blueprint to go, right? And some of us that may not be our blueprint. That is not my blueprint. But we can have a lot of formulas. But if we moving into the new paradigm, though, we have to be able to raise our own frequency and consciousness and know the truth of who we are and be able to amplify that from our soul signature. And then life, capital L, right? Life knows exactly how to bring us to what is in our right and true expression. And that may be the formulas, that may be just you're creating enough frequency within yourself that alignment happens naturally, right? So this is an ongoing process, and this is the beginning phase, so to speak, that we're at. So I want to just make sure that I've included everything, and then sort of the threads that are going to be woven through. And then we'll also be doing, I'm sure, some videos throughout the year on some of this, is our soul signature, our soul song, right? Living our soul truth. That comes from the integration. That comes from reclaiming our soul power, our true soul power from the spark, right? That most of us have been through, hundreds and hundreds of years because we have not been fully embodied, to the full flame of who we are, the full power, the full light of who we are. And when we start hitting those higher levels, our signature registers out to the universe. And it's a frequency that communicates with everything that is in our blueprint, so to speak, right? That is there for us to call upon and to materialize on this plane. We covered the maturity through highest choices, the spiritual maturity that comes from personal choice and inner authority through direct experience. The I am presence. So that I am presence is part of that soul presencing. It's that Christed frequency that when we're really, really in that divine love center, it anchors in. And it will speak to you from within. It will call you in. And it will amplify your own beingness as a Christed I am presence. We're going to work with the nervous system a lot. It's going to be woven in because most of us have a highly imbalanced, dysregulated nervous system because that is how we've been conditioned through the society that we've lived in the Western world. And what that does is it keeps us in states of contraction and constriction, keeps us into the intellect versus in the body, and keeps us in going and doing, which I'm sure everybody is hearing about the polyvagal nervous system now. The polyvagal nervous system, the vagus nerve has to be regulated and in operating optimally in order to receive the light, in order to embody, in order to open enough to hold your soul fractals of your highest self. So we're going to be working with that. And I think that's it. That's all that I need to say for now. It's a lot of information probably. So the new moon, we're coming into the new moon. And so here's what I would like to put out as an invitation for the new moon. We aren't working with the new moon. We aren't doing anything for the new moon. We're going to really tune in to the darkness of the new moon and the rest, the replenishment, the healing, the detoxification of the new moon, allowing the regeneration to happen. So part of the cycles of working with the moon is that when we're working with the cycles of the moon, not long after the full moon, probably let's say like the middle of, last week or the end of last week, we will have already made the discernment, so to speak, of what is it that we're wanting to plant the seed for. And we would already be planting it probably right about now. But the closer that we get to the new moon, so by Sunday, by like Friday, Saturday, Sunday, is all about the going within. It's all about non-doing. If you plant your seed, right, you want to make sure that with the seed that you're planting, you're holding the right frequency for it. You're in alignment with that, with the energetics, okay? Or at least the first level of that seed manifestation, right? It takes a long time. Some things take a while to manifest. I can say that. Like my average has been, you know, from the different phases of this last like 4 years, it's taken 6 months to a year before I can go, oh, okay, it's landing now. The new timeline is landing. Okay. And then it anchors in, you know, maybe like a year and a half, 2 years later. So, but we're consistently working with it, right? We're consistently refining the frequency, aligning that frequency within, and then the quantum realm is matching that. Sorry, I'm digressing. So make sure that you're coming into a resonance with what you're planting, and then let it go. Right? Your soul knows. Your highest self knows. Ask for assistance. It knows exactly what you truly need if you're surrendering to its guidance. It knows how you need it. It knows how it's supposed to show up, when it's supposed to show up. This is where the trust and faith starts to build as we continue to move through these cycles of surrender and release, trust and faith. And then so for Sunday, you know, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, hang out in that liminal space. There's nothing for you to know. There's nothing for you to do. Create a cocoon for yourself. Connect with the moon energy. Let yourself sleep longer. Watch your dreams. Journal. Do creative work. Right? Keep everything soft. Go to bed when it gets dark. Rise with the dawn. Move with the cycles. So this is going to come out probably in the next, you know, day or two. So what is today? This is Tuesday. So because I want to be, right, my rhythm is, okay, get whatever I need to have done so that I can just dive in. And, you know, I have clients and everything, but that's different. So I'm cultivating and creating my container consciously for what is best going to serve my next leveling, my next cycle. What is it that I'm wanting to create? And I want to rejuvenate, regenerate, and release whatever is not going to serve my next level, right? So I'm going to invite you into that relationship with you, into that sacred relationship with the moon energy and its communication. Commune with it. Ask for its messages for you. And this is just, you know, part of what we're going to be deepening into through the mentorship sessions coming up whenever you want. So this is what the energy is showing us for this year. And it's really beautiful. It's truly, truly, truly beautiful, expansive, amplifying, and very grounding, and lets us come into our deep humanity as well as our divinity. And we're merging, right? This is a marriage that we're coming into, heaven and earth. And so with that, I'm going to leave you. If you are interested in finding out more, if this really aligns with you, please feel free to email me at lotus@artofsacredembodiment.net. Go to the library. If you want to order one of the classes, email me at that same email. Tell me which one you want, and I'll connect back with you on that. And you know, and also you can contact me directly from the website, which is lotuslindley.net. All right, beauties, thank you so much. And I hope to see those of you who feel aligned with this next level of creating and flourishing. And for me, flourishing is all about flourishing in deep, deep balance and harmony and peace, right? Which allows more joy. So listen, kind of connect in. What is flourishing and thriving for you? I did that in the last email, or the last newsletter, and just see what shows up after this conversation, and how can you access that more better. And if you feel aligned with some assistance, reach out. All right. Blessings. Much love.